that did the trick. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. We're the WordPress Web Help Meetup group. This is our December meetup. We've got some of our usual suspects here in the room. We've been discussing some kind of informal topics, but I'm going to run the recording and kind of move to a more formal status. And we've been talking about computer hardware, specifically the topic of new versus refurbished. And are there reliable non-factory? Because myself, like Mike, maybe all of you, if I've considered refurbished, it was always a factory refurbished. But there's some pretty good refurbished shops out there in the five-star world of Amazon and eBay even, where you can see if people are doing a good job on their refurbish. And anyway, so that's what we were talking about. Everybody went Avatar again. All right, so it's me and Brendan are live. The rest, they could be AI, maybe not. Shall we start with some quick introductions? We just want to give you an opportunity to tell, and remember, we get more views on replays, which is why it's important. If you're here and are offering your help, you might be able to offer somebody help who's not even attending tonight by putting your contact information in the chat, that sort of thing. Our format for introductions, geez, there are my notes.
So is this for the recording? Because we all know each other.
I know, but remember again, we're in the world of replays.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that people who show up, who don't know us, are also able to put a name to a face and what we do. And, I'm always looking for new possibilities. So put your contact information in the chat when you give your intro. And that way people can contact you if they feel that you might have, might be a good fit for their project.
Does the chat show up in the video?
Well, it does and it doesn't. The chat does not. However, what I've been doing is I've been using AI, and before, when I put a description on YouTube, I use my AI and I feed it the chat, and I also feed it the results of the AI companion. As soon as, I don't know if any of you guys use the AI companion, but as soon as the meeting's over, I receive an email that gives us a meeting overview, gives us a summary, gives us even gives, this one's a handy one, what's next. If we discuss, and this is more for business meetings, but it's a handy feature that we can take a look at, see if there's homework that we agreed to do, that sort of thing. So I feed the AI and the chat in there, and I ask it to spit me out a description, and that way I can provide, if there are any important links that were given out, go ahead and feature those. And anyway, so not directly the chat, but the information from the chat definitely goes into the description if it warrants it. So that's the answer to that question. Who did we lose? We're losing people. Okay, well, let's start doing some introductions and hope somebody comes back. I'm just going to go by the grid here in front of me. Brendan, you're up first. Tell us who you are, where you are, what it is you do, why you're here, any ideas for our group or topics for the meeting. Your biggest WordPress, DK's here.
Yeah,
Biggest WordPress or business challenge.
yeah. I'm
Take them,
I'm
take them.
Brendan O'Connell. I'm based in San Diego, California. I've been using WordPress for 10 years, and I've been helping businesses and nonprofits and government institutions and fire departments and sort of you name it, onboard into WordPress. And it's been a great open source platform. So I'm big proponent of it, and it's been awesome to help people get online. Um, and that's what I do.
Very cool.
You can find me at brendan-o'connell.com.
Great. And if you want to put that in the chat, like I say, it can possibly make it into the description depending on how things go. DK, welcome. Good to see you, man.
Thank
Next
you.
on my list here is the ever illustrious Mr. Noder, Mike Noder.
Yeah, Mike from Spokane. I help people with businesses. I run WordPress meetups and WooCommerce meetups. I am here to support the WordPress community where I can. The biggest WordPress or business challenges is usually government interference,
I could say
which
that
incidentally,
could
I'm
be
thinking about doing a meetup about explaining why a lot of the privacy and a lot of the accessibility laws are counterproductive. We can get into it later.
okay. Yeah,
I'm an advocate for it, and a lot of people in the group are, but there's reasons why they're not getting the mileage they think they're getting.
sure,
It's almost
sure.
restraint of trade in some ways, but we'll talk later.
Well, that makes sense as a topic. And Mr. David Shargle. David, you still with us?
I'm going to bet he's walking his dog while he has joined us, and it's too hard for him to hang on to the leash and unmute his phone, I bet.
All right, well, good. Thanks for that information. How about you, DK?
Well, we all know each other, including Brendan, and you all know I'm
You do know, remember, I post this for the replay. The people who didn't make the meeting uh,
oh,
didn't
gotcha.
may not know you, so
Okay.
we do it for the replay and every benefit of being here that I can pass on to replay attendees. Let's do it. If
Gotcha.
it gets you a client, or somebody shows up and finds that you might be the person with the exact right experience for their particular issue, then we'll do it for them. So think more than who's on the screen in front of you.
Gotcha. Well, I'm Doug. I've been in the WordPress arena for longer than I probably remember, and if not that, before WordPress, I've built websites by hand and been a database administrator for municipalities and whatnot. So anyway, I am in the neck of the tech world that I enjoy, and that right now is in the WordPress arena. And I basically build, host, maintain websites for my clients. So if you feel
Groovy.
so inclined, as you rewatch this, then feel free to get in touch with me, and I'll put my information in the chat.
Thank you. All right. And well, is David back? Do we have you back, David?
I
Oh,
am back. Do you not see that button
oh,
that says I'm away or something like that when I
uh-uh.
hit a button that said nope.
If it is, it's lost somewhere on my three screens.
Oh,
So
there it is. Let's see here.
sorry.
I did see that, and I didn't know what that was, but now I know.
Yeah, okay.
That makes
Um,
sense.
all right, yeah. I was away for a little bit, so I'm
Yeah.
returning. What's going on? Hi.
We're
Hello
doing
everybody from
intros.
Portland, Oregon.
We're just doing our quickie intros.
My name is David. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and I do WordPress. I've been doing computers for too long. I'm going to show my age by telling you people that I used to work with Hollerith cards. And let's see what else. I've been decreasing my amount of WordPress stuff, except for the past couple of months where it's increasing. So I do a lot of SEO. I know SEO pretty well. I know AI more than any human should, and I'm doing an increasing amount, or at least I was a few months ago, of accessibility. So I have a really good handle on some weird accessibility issues that have come up. So that's where I'm at.
Those are some very useful areas of expertise. Thank you.
If I could ask, are you replacing WordPress with something? Like
Yeah,
you said,
I've
you're
been
doing
replacing.
less WordPress. So I was just
Yeah, I've been
curious.
replacing WordPress for I'm gonna say probably 9-ish months to maybe a year now. As in I'm like not building out any new sites using WordPress unless they're experimental sites, not client facing sites. And I'm not I'm kind of outspoken that I'm fairly vocal that point and click website building does not have a strong future um, into the next couple of decades. So, and I think WordPress is so just rooted in the if you want to manipulate something, you point and click. I just don't see that the new generations of up and comers are going to be embracing that. So,
Yeah, in a couple of
been doing
demos there.
WordPress for I've been doing WordPress for over 20 years. Started with version 1.5.1, but um, Huey Lewis says the future's so bright I need to wear shades, and that's not a WordPress thing right now.
What are you using instead, if I might ask?
It really depends. I'm really bullish on Astro as a web framework. I don't know if you're familiar with it or have heard of Astro.
Yeah.
Not Astra, not the word, right?
No,
Astro.
yeah, Astro.
I'm very bullish on it. I think it has um, it's easy to do. It makes screaming fast websites. It has some great expandability, and it's fairly approachable, um, especially with vibe coders and people just want to slam up a site in a couple of hours. I mean, there's a lot of downsides to it, and very bullish right now in something called TanStack. TanStack is just a whole series of different types of things that are React based. I think React, as bad as the technology may be, has it's been around forever. It was invented by Meta. I think as bad as the technology may be, it just has it's become the de facto standard for mobile development.
The ten
And
stack or tan stack?
TanStack, T A N S
TAN.
T A C K.
Mm-hmm.
So TanStack, you know, TanStack is this crazy huge ecosystem of libraries and packages that are used for modern web development. And I know I'm being very generic in that statement there, but how do I say this? If anybody is writing modern apps that are doing vibe coding, they actually have a lot of TanStack React and TanStack Query built under the hood. They just probably just don't know it because they're freaking vibe coding themselves into a corner. But
How do you feel about expounding on that after the intros?
yeah, all right, yeah, go intro next.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
I'm just
That just
answering
leaves
Brendan's
me.
question here. Yeah.
I'm Edward, your humble host. My company is Brass Ring Web Design here in San Diego, where it's been nice but chilly. A little warmer today, and I've been building websites since 1998. I've been specializing in WordPress since 2009, 2010 or so. I'm My specialty is marketing. I find that compared to some of you guys who are such technical wizards, I'm the guy trying to catch up. But I have 30 years in small business and a lot of experience in marketing. So my job is about empowering my clients because most of them end up with a website that checks off the box. I have a website and might serve as a pretty back, expansion to their website. I'm sorry, to their business card. But a lot of websites that I see are pretty weak in terms of conversions and the things that bring us to conversions, the calls to action, the things that allow us to harvest emails, the lead magnets, all the things that larger operations might be able to bring to the fore. I try to help my mom and pop clients to get a bigger bite than their size might normally allow them to do. So that is me. And with that, my reflex is usually to look to Mr. Noder and see if he might be willing to dip into the world of WordPress and Woo news. Mike has a very useful and enjoyable, which I haven't attended. He has a meetup on Wednesdays called Woo Wednesdays at noon Pacific Standard Time, and he has a very useful feature, which is basically news. What's going on in the Woo and WordPress world?
Yeah,
What
I can do that if you let me share.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's a little
Uh,
bit thin this week because I've had internet problems, and it was really bizarre. This has been going on for several years with Comcast and Affinity. You go into the junction box, it's completely dry, but the coupling moisture shows up, it freezes. Technician tell Friday it breaks the connection. So I was taking a hair dryer, drying it out, using a napkin to soak up the water. I've been
oh,
doing this for
geez.
years. Always when it gets right around freezing. If it gets down around 25, it doesn't. If it's up around 35, it doesn't. It's just right around freezing. So the guy knew the problem. And I have to tell you this about Comcast and Xfinity. When you reach a person, they're always really nice. They're great. But their automated system to get to them is hell. So anyway, the guy came out on Friday. He replaced it. He's got a screw down one with the grommet. He says, "Yeah, I know. We've got a bunch of them," and he solved it. But I didn't have any internet for more than maybe 20, 30 minutes at a time for the whole last week. So it kind of
Mm.
affected my Woo Wednesday blog,
Oh,
which
that
I will
sucks.
share right now. Most of you know how to get a hold of it. I guess I can put a link in the chat too.
Yeah, put some links, share what you will. I definitely have been putting your contact information and
Yeah, you can, but I'm not really looking for work. I usually refer it to you guys, the work.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a pretty useful resource, especially
Oh, right. No, okay.
your list of meetups, the
Sure.
free
So,
resources, and certainly what's going on.
yeah. So anyway, the image this week is Woo Ball, Ben Ball. I'm using Grok of late. Suddenly I'm getting my aspect ratio right with that. This took 20, maybe 30 seconds for the image, and they gave me two, and I elected to go with this one. And the
Okay.
framing's turning out to be about right for this blog. Most of you are familiar with how I always list the relevant meetups for the week. This is old news. This is from last Wednesday. Most of these is past. We're all the way down here to WP Web Help, which is this meetup. There'll be Inland Empire virtual WordPress developer night tomorrow night. That's Various who runs that one, and then Learn WP is doing Campus Connect. Now that's for night owls. It's like at 2 a.m. Pacific time, and what they're interacting with campuses. And if you're interested in that stuff, you can check that out. With WooCommerce, we're at the 10.3.6 dot release. As you know, you can read about it. All of these are hot linked, so you can read any of the articles if you want to know more about it. WooCommerce 10.4 is coming out here pretty quick. They about locked that up. Incidentally, this Shani Banjari, she's been my contact for the last 6 months with WooCommerce, who makes WooCommerce available on Meetup.com and provides a pro Zoom account. So nice of them to do that. So I'm happy to help them too, because WooCommerce is a pretty powerful platform. As most of you know, 6.9 came out. It's Gene. It's named after a jazz musician. That's his Gene Harris is his name. And then we've got State of the Word. Apparently I shared it. Now it's not available. And I did want to kind of mention a little something about that David said he's moving away from. He doesn't think WordPress is the future, and I think I understand that argument. But I was wondering if maybe David had listened to the State of the Word. He says they're at 43% of all websites and 64%, 60-some% of all CMS, which is still a pretty sizable presence in the market. I mean,
yeah, and WooCommerce is 8.9% of all the e-commerce, right? Almost 9% of all the e-commerce around the world websites is 9%,
I
right?
think they have 8 million sites, but in the repository, the free repository, they say 7 million. That went down. But a lot of people are loading WooCommerce from other sources now. So the repository is not all of the WooCommerce installs. And I'm only talking about the free version. And then there's the pro, and all the platforms, all the plugins, and all this stuff. WooCommerce is a powerful platform. It's not right for everybody. I mean, so if somebody's watching this video, WooCommerce is powerful, but if you're not going to learn WordPress and you're not going to hire a developer to take care of it, you probably don't want to use WooCommerce. You're probably going to want to use something like Shopify but if you don't mind learning it, or you have a competent WordPress professional around, you can do amazing stuff with it. I recommend it.
There's all don't forget the WooCommerce or the WordPress alternatives to WooCommerce, such as SureCart.
SureCart, and I did a presentation. I don't know, in this group maybe, and I listed like 20 alternatives. Right, there's a bunch of them out there. There's a bunch of e-commerce stuff that could probably work for. I don't recommend most of them, like Wix or Squarespace, or there's a bunch of them out there.
Hey, Edward from Brass Ring Web Design popping in for a sec to tell you how we can help your DIY website project by making your website effective, not just pretty. At Brass Ring, we take a big picture approach to digital marketing, building a strong foundation that drives long-term growth. We use our hub and spoke traffic model. Yes, of course, we design high-performing WordPress websites that serve as your central marketing hub. We also coordinate traffic to it from key platforms like email marketing, SEO, social media, and ads. We align every aspect of your digital presence for lasting success. More than just ad managers, we're your partner, optimizing the entire customer journey to better use your time and marketing investment and deliver lasting value. Training and coaching you along the way means you continue to save DIY money and retain control. And now, back to our meeting.
But if you're going to use WooCommerce, it'll do pretty much anything you want, but it's complicated. It can get very complicated, and that's just a caveat there. But everybody in this group that's in this meeting knows this. This is not new news. This is for the benefit of anybody that may watch the recording in the future. WooCommerce 10.5 pre-release updates are out. We just talked about that. Oh, we're down to the WordPress news. Like I say, it's very thin. I couldn't get access to the internet for most of the week, so it was hard for me to.
No worries. We just appreciate you doing it.
Yeah. So anyway, and then keeping your data away from online crooks this holiday season. this is a perpetual problem. This article from BizPack Review by Julio Rivera kind of gets into this kind of the stuff you should be aware of for online shopping and the stuff that most of the people in this meetup tonight know about. But for those that are a bit naive about all the problems, it's a worthy article to possibly read. And then for free resources, this is let me think about this. I got this from another group. This is a social proof. It's free, and what you can do is you can use it to create testimonies. You can use it to do background stuff, and it's for if you're trying to build a social media proof online with your website. You can use this free tool called Senja to greatly help with that. Now, I've talked to 2 or 3 people who have used it. They really like it. They think it's great. I've never used it, and as with every week when I try to do a free tool, it's not an endorsement. I'm making it aware of it. It may be right for you. It may not. I don't know. But a couple of people I talked to, they were pretty happy with this Senja. And it's really about testimonials. It's really about social credibility in the space. And they have a bunch of stuff, but the pricing is, zero forever is what they're saying. And these are all the things that it will do. It's something worth checking out. And, if you're really trying to establish yourself in the WordPress and in the e-commerce community, and you want branding and you want notoriety and you want follow-up and you want social credibility, a tool like this could probably help quite a bit. And so I was happy to come along with it. I'm sharing it with you folks. If anybody uses it or are aware of it, have comments, I'd be interested in it. But I do like that $0 a month pricing pricing schedule. So, and that is the abbreviated Woo Wednesday for last week. So,
Very cool. Thank you.
yep.
And I hope that this coming week is smoother sailing.
Yeah, the technician that came out was really good, and I sat there and I chatted with him. He explained to me, this was a design flaw that we've known about it. It's like, and he says he knew all about the support, automated support. He says every customer I come out to, they all tell me the same thing. And we have our meetings. We say you need to fix this, and they don't listen. I said, and I go, yeah. When I talk to a person online, they're great. And when I get a technician, they're great. They're really, really good, man, way above average. But getting through that automated system of theirs is like.
I think every automated system that I interact with is basically on that same path. It's just unbelievable sometimes that I'm not just sitting in an
I guess
episode.
they're saving money putting us into the void.
Yeah, well, you feel like you're living idiocracy or something, I mean, it's
It makes me want to pay double to have a different service, right?
yeah.
But they got it fixed, and I have it. He came back Friday morning, and I haven't had a problem with the internet since. So he says, yeah, I got it. I got you taken care of.
I haven't put it up at this place, but at my old place, I got a really great print of Rod Serling from Twilight Zone,
Yeah.
and basically said, "Welcome to the Twilight Zone," and I just put it on the back of my front door, because I swear to God, the world just feels that way, whether it's geopolitical, technical, whatever. I find myself, I actually don't shake my head anymore. I'm sad to say that I'm kind of accepting it, but let's just say that the list of things that seem to degrade is a far larger list than those that seem to get better, whether it's customers and customer service, like like journalism or many other things, is it's coughing its last breath. So anyway, anything else, Michael?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I can rant all day long. I can rant with the best of them. Well, I can rant with the worst of them. Let's put it that way.
I've got a comment I want to, if I could, get out there before David launches, because I'd like what he says to encompass one thought, and that is, you don't see WordPress. The point and click environment is going to go away, but who's to say that WordPress isn't going to iterate? You've got different tools. Like you and I just looked at one last night. There's a lot of opportunity for somebody to build something on top of WordPress, or maybe WordPress will make some great decisions themselves, and the native WordPress will become something that is more conducive of the modern future world. So who's to say that that's not going to happen? Or do you make your comments based on the fact that we haven't seen it yet, so why would we expect to? Because
Well,
we're
you know
seeing
what?
we're
What?
seeing stuff like Etch and Mosaic and stuff like that, who we know is going to encompass the AI side of things and whatever's needed. So when you talk about the stuff that you're using, can you give your opinions based on what I just said?
I'm going to just jump in really quick. What I got from what David was saying, and I see it in the overall landscape of WordPress. When I first was kind of dragged kicking and screaming into the world of WordPress, I had been building websites using like Dreamweaver and even had learned how to do basic websites in I'm not the guy who loves being in front of a page of code, but one of the things that was a real draw for me was WordPress allowed me to streamline and offer more. There's less time that I needed to spend on the nuts and bolts of getting the site up and running and that sort of thing. So as AI comes along and marketing shifts, and SEO does what it has been doing since the early days of just gaming alphabetically, and all the black hat stuff that we used to see people do. I never, embraced that stuff. I figure I'd rather not make money as a white hat guy than not feel good about a lot of the tricks, a lot of the stuffing and all the invisible text that we used to see back in the day. I mean, what do you do when the web is largely optimized? Well, that's when the marketing kicks in, and that's when you can allow more automated processes to take care of the actual building of the site. Because think about it, I mean, the site takes what, a month or two to build, but it has a lifespan and a utility of years if it's taken care of right. So it can allow us as developers to become better marketers, to become better at SEO, better at SEO in 2025. And it's going to be different in 2026. And we got, a lot of new search options that need to
So
be
I like
accounted for.
DK's.
Yeah?
I like DK's follow up and David's comments. I think the consumer is pretty much conditioned to be a point and click, and so what you're getting a lot of AI summaries now. So you don't really need to click through. And is that what David's talking about the new models where you will not like, because if you have a website and they visit your website, I don't really get the model where they don't, if they're interested in this topic, they click through. If they want to know about the about page, they click through. I don't really know, maybe there's some sort of vision for the future that I'm not aware of right now. It will evolve, of course, but I don't know how
That's a great question, because the way I took his comments was WordPress is a point and click building environment. I thought that's what he was talking about.
Well, there's that, but it's also, interacting with the site itself. Once AI, I mean, hell, Elon's putting chips in people's heads. We've all seen the Matrix and things like that, and a lot of things that used to be pie in the sky are now every day. We all carry a phone that we watched Captain Kirk and Spock talk to each other on, back in the 60s. So these things change. So the interface may change, but at the end of the day, you have the way I look at it, any website is a 24/7 salesperson.
I think we're talking about two different things here. I mean, and maybe I'm not following. DK, when you say a point and click building environment, like
He was referencing WordPress, and he's not really. He is going a slightly different direction than WordPress, because he doesn't see the future as being a point and click environment. And I think he meant point and click building environment.
right. So you point on a block, click on the block.
Yep, yep, yep.
So what do you think he's?
He's talking about giving voice instructions to AI instead.
Oh.
What I say.
Okay.
What I say.
We're putting a lot of words in David's mouth. Did we lose David himself again?
No. He is winding up. Trust me.
No, you illuminated. All right. So instead of point and click, you're going to use voice activated AI.
He'll clear that up in a second. But what about the fact that it's already more efficient to point at the thing that you want to modify, point, click, and now give it voice instructions? This is what I want you to change, as opposed to using voice instructions to explain what part of the page you're talking about.
So not as a user experience.
Yes,
the new models are pretty good.
You saw that suggestion of React Grab in the community, right?
I did not.
That one of your teammates is going to take a closer look at.
I did not see that yet.
Yeah.
In Eagles community?
No, in
Is that something in Etch?
Etch's community.
Oh, okay.
That sounds cool. I've been messing around a lot with Pinegrow and the AI there. And
David, are you wound up?
I just want to say that the moment that DK said that is my wife, who's sitting right next to me. I don't know if you can hear her chuckling. She's totally chuckling. And and I'm not wound up. It's just this. It's such a complicated topic. It's not simple by any stretch of the imagination. And that's the real bummer here. It's not like there's an easy answer for any of it. So if you let me take a couple of different angles, okay? So if you're a large business or an enterprise, they're looking at WordPress, and I'm oversimplifying. There's a lot of them that are looking at WordPress as a legacy product, and they're seeing it as a product that may not be. It'll definitely support what they're doing because there's so much legacy code that's going to keep their stuff running for a long time. I mean, decades and decades and decades. This stuff is going to be running for. But what's the next thing for them? And I think to a large extent, they have to pivot towards where their customers are, and their customers may not be on websites. And if I'm starting a new project and I'm a chief technology officer at a big company, I start saying, okay, how much am I going to spend on this legacy product? And the answer, by the way, is I have to spend a lot of money on it because I have so much data in it already, right? I got so many blog postings. I have so many websites that are there. But it's really sad to see that a lot of the large businesses and enterprises are not embracing new projects. And I think there's a writing on the wall for that. So that's one thing. The other thing is on the WooCommerce side, on the commerce side, where you got to remember that WooCommerce was the player, right? for years on end. There was nothing else, right? And now you have other e-commerce products, on different levels that are fighting against it. And Shopify is doing extremely well in this mix. If you're a brand new person coming to e-commerce, especially if you're in the beauty and lifestyle market, you go right for Shopify. There's, do not pass go. And there's a whole bunch of other categories and a whole bunch of other segments that just go right to Shopify.
It's so
And
much easier.
it's and not only is it easier, but the infrastructure is right there. The pricing is not scalable. I think people find out on the back end that if you do really well, Shopify is going to cost you more than WooCommerce in the end, but you also don't have security concerns, right? This is a matter of fact, Shopify, 2 years ago, they did a lot of innovation on preventing bad orders, right? It's not easy to get bad orders pushing through on Shopify. It happens, but it's just not easy. So, I don't know if statistically, WooCommerce installs peaked in Q2 of 2024, right? And so you're talking about, this is now over a year ago, right? Over a year ago, WooCommerce peaked. And so it's important to recognize on another level is that WordPress is here to stay. WordPress ain't going nowhere, right? It's 43% of the internet. 43%. WooCommerce, and by the way, Mike, I definitely watched his The State of the Word. As a matter of fact, I was watching it live and when it failed like multiple times over, kind of thing. And 8.9% of all the e-commerce sites. That's nothing to sneeze at, right? That's market, right? But this idea that we are likely or possibly approaching the peak of that 43%. We're definitely on WooCommerce, according to some numbers, right? I mean, it depends on where you get your stats from. That the fact that WooCommerce peaked in, Q2 of 2024, doesn't bode well, right? Doesn't bode well.
Well,
So we're not
So
we're
then,
not feeling
then
particularly bullish for the future of Woo. You think
am
they're
I
being
bullish for it?
outmaneuvered and not making enough efforts to keep up?
Well, let me go bring over the next point here, okay? DK, I'm all wound up. DK, you got me.
That's not
But
that's not what I meant. I
yeah,
meant not getting wound up
well,
stereotypically, but getting ready to make your points.
yeah,
yeah,
get
and
started.
the other thing is, and
I
this is
knew
a
I knew
really
what he
key
meant.
point here. A very key point is that we're not really addressing where the audiences are pivoting to, right? If you are if you're putting out Yeezys, your market is not going to a website, right? They're just not. They're ending up on TikTok, they're ending up on Instagram Reels, they're ending up on YouTube Shorts. That's where they're consuming the media. If you have a fashion product or even a beauty product that you want to promote, that is your own product, you put up a little button on TikTok that clicks buy, and that's the commerce, right? The commerce is happening in a different fashion for certain audiences. And audience wise, and this idea of point and click that I was alluding to is that the Gen Z people, you got to remember, Gen Z is now 28-year-olds, right? 13 to 28, right? You know what I mean? Gen A is 0 to 13. So we're getting the first coders on Gen A, right? The first 9 to 13-year-old coders are coming out of Gen A, and they're just not touching WordPress. They just aren't. And what they're doing is they're used to the AIs. This is how they remember, right? You got to remember these people. Gen A was called the iPad kids, right? Generation Glass, right? You know what I mean? That those nicknames stick to them because they are approaching, consuming internet very differently, and they're just reaching for prompting. They like the idea that they can say a few words to things. They like the idea that they are able to create using tools that allow them to do point and click and support their ADHD to move on. And the point and click mechanisms that we get out of Shopify, right? You got to remember Shopify is a point and click system. WordPress is a point and click. The systems that we get out of it are just, again, I'm oversimplifying. They're just not getting embraced by Gen A. And also, they're declaring that 2025 is the Gen B people, right? Isn't that what they're saying? Gen A has come to an end. Generation A has come to an end. Gen B is the people who were born in 2025. So, um, so my optimism for WordPress is that it's not going to go away. It's not, I mean, that 43% maybe is going to become 42%. Maybe it'll become 40%. I think it's, the innovations that are happening in WordPress, sadly, are so limited. They're so bound to legacy. They can't break websites, right? There's too many websites. They just can't do it. They can't. But there's some pretty good innovations in WordPress 6.9. I think a lot of people who are end users, they're like, I don't need to install it. There's no features for me. But for developers, it's exciting. There's some stuff in 6.9 that, I mean, DK knows that I'm excited by. I'm crazy excited by some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
So
who has as large of a development community?
yeah, well, the larger development community right now
Next.js.
is our vibe coders. The largest group of people are people who don't know what they're generating. The output is spaghetti code, but it runs. There's no accessibility. There's almost zero SEO. There's no ability for them to output to mobile devices. They're definitely not doing the glasses, like Meta Ray-Ban glasses. They're not doing that kind of stuff because that's the nature of where we're at in 2025. But, the reality is that what that is outputting is Next.js by and far, right? And that's a lot of new websites that you see on the internet are Next.js, a lot of the new ones.
David,
Listen, I think the fastest growing product in 2025, I don't know if you know, the fastest growing product in 2025 was Claude Code by Anthropic. 6 months, $0 to $1 billion. All right. We've never had a product grow like that ever in history. It's never happened. And this is not a product that's approachable by a lot of people. But vibe coders, they're like, I can pay down. I can do a bolt.new or a replit or Lovable. And look at this. I got a little website. Yay. And let me go to the next level. They can't make products. It's important. Some of you heard me talk about vibe coding. You're making prototypes for friends and families at best. You're not making products. There's nothing production level about this right now. So that's the I know I'm giving a long answer to your simple question, Ed, but that nature of that increase. I think I saw something maybe a month ago that said that there's now about 3 million web developers. Okay. While at the beginning of 2024, there were 150,000 web developers. And just a couple of months ago, there were 3 million. How does that happen? How does that happen? That happens when people go to their AI and they typey, right? That's why it's happening. So who's doing that, right? Well, who's
thank
doing
you.
it is the Gen Ys, right? Gen X, Gen Ys who are like fearing they're going to get fired. They're going to get laid off. They better learn the new stuff.
They're gonna
That's
get laid off
happening
anyway.
heavily out of Gen Y, right? Heavily.
They're all gonna
Anybody
get
that's
laid
in the
off.
30 to 40s, they're embracing this stuff. And then, like I said before, very briefly, Gen Z and Gen A, this is they're waiting in this pool and they're not turning back. So in the end, that's why I conclude that this idea that point and click as a mechanism to build websites probably does not have a long-term future. Is that 10 years, 20 years? I don't know. I just don't. I suspect that. What was the numbers of WordPress last year? Anybody remember the state of the word last year?
Yeah, but you're drawing a connection that WordPress will always be point and click the way it is now.
No, no, no. Listen, DK, you and I spent some time looking at how it's not point and click, right?
Yeah.
And we saw, and you saw me give you very explicit demonstrations, right? I mean, for what it's worth, Mike. Yesterday, DK and I were on a Zoom session, and I went into an experimental install I have of WordPress, and I typed in what was it? Create a T-shirt at $20 and a $30 special. Make one red, one blue.
Yes.
And what
Yes.
did it take? It took a few minutes to create a new category. And this is my words, right? It was a new
Yeah.
category. It was 2 variations. It had different pricing. It was far
Yeah,
from
but who's
perfect.
to say that WordPress won't morph like that. WordPress won't, who's to say that it won't take on a new, more modern ability to do that? So
But
that
wait a second, WordPress can do that.
Yeah, WordPress is doing that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think you even saw that Cody, right? My
yeah.
optimism of Cody,
Supports
right?
DK's argument,
You know
basically.
Or
that
was that the point? I'm sorry, maybe I missed the
No,
point
no,
of.
no. I'm with you, Brandon. It's like that's the point DK's making.
no, I think DK is saying that there are toolings that allow this type of functionality to come to WordPress.
Oh, yeah, and if it's not there now, who's to say it's not going to be? So the people that say WordPress is dead or
Especially
don't
with
use WordPress
6.9.
anymore, they're assuming nothing's going to change.
Yeah, but he's not saying WordPress is dead. He's more pointing to WooCommerce. But I want to push back on that a little bit because WooCommerce, I think they've suffered because their releases have had so many glitches and they had to roll back. I think that hurt them over the last year and a half. But WooCommerce is integrating with Instagram and TikTok. They're starting to do stuff where you can do point of sales in environments that David is actually describing. And incidentally, David, you've raised a whole lot of good points and provided a whole lot of great insights to help me frame what's going on here because we're all looking at a transitional period here.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
you've actually
Definitely. Oh
said
yeah,
that
definitely.
WordPress isn't going away, and I kind of agree. It could come down, it could go up a couple points, but the WooCommerce though, they need to figure out what's going on, and I think they're adapting. I think they're actually trying to integrate so they can do point of sales within those platforms now. So I think they're sort of seeing it.
Do
But
they
I want
have
to
a
reiterate,
choice?
I think they hurt themselves with their releases. They were so buggy. It's like, good Lord, man. It's like, it was terrible, man. Anyway, sorry. I
Yeah. No,
don't want to
And
interrupt you there.
David brought up the generational thing, which I think does not get talked up enough in WordPress. And it's something that we just don't see the younger generation coming into WordPress in droves. Like I don't know if that was ever the case. Like I'm I guess relatively new to the WordPress scene in that sense. And I'm 35 and I'm probably the youngest person here. And that I feel that in other WordPress groups too. And not to throw shade on anyone here. It's like, you guys are all young men in my hearts. Uh but I
Thanks
mean
for
I
rounding
would
up, man.
I would love to see more young guys in here. I mean, and young gals, because that's how we keep the thing alive, honestly. Um,
That's a good observation. Because a lot of these kids, when I say kids, man, they're 20, they
in their
don't own
20s.
computers. They have no
Yeah.
need for a computer, right? They
Like you
can do
said, the
everything
iPad
on
generation.
Instagram and they can do everything on TikTok. They can have Facebook on their cell phone.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know the posting experience. Like, just imagine, like, okay, I want to go post a new blog on my website. Like that experience on WordPress is not fun.
Well, for every kid who is out there as a standard user of the technology, how many of them are actually doing something worth a damn with an outcome that benefits, from a business sense?
Well, I would say I know what you mean, but I would say more so now just because of the vibe coding thing. I
Definitely. Yeah.
I
And
think
that
it's
that
yeah.
that's a
I
big
mean,
weird thing.
we've been through technological paradigm changes, cars have evolved, and yet, the nature of what they do, where they go, and how to maybe guide that experience are different, and we're talking about conversations that they might have had in the early what turn of the 1900s when Henry Ford invented the production line. There were people who were building cars by hand, one bolt at a time, one rivet at a time, and suddenly here comes along a machine that allows you to get from nothing to the working product in a lesser time. And I think that's what we're talking about. I think by reducing, how much time do we all spend on doing stuff that's below our level of talent, let's say? I think this will, just like WordPress was an eye opener for me, this allows us to then focus on, okay, the product is done. Now what do we do? What else can we bring into the equation? What else can we offer the client in terms of added value? Um, like David, focusing more on SEO or focusing more on AI. Believe me, the ability to help somebody along with AI is an absolutely viable thing. The idea that one would have to continue building websites manually from the ground up with the point and click of the 2000s. Okay, so we're going to streamline a lot of that stuff so we can get to the point of this website is now a functioning thing. What is it? How have we planned it? Well, it's more than just making sure that we know how to, do like the term I always use is the nuts and bolts of it. That's not the nuts and bolts of it
You
is
know,
not what sells websites.
I don't
It's
want to
benefits.
underestimate the importance of the value add, right? That's where the developers live, right? And that's where they're going to continue to live. This idea that somebody who is a sole proprietor or a small business that wants to get a web presence or an internet presence, they have very narrow choices, right? It's a DIY, or it's a I need to seek help to do my DIY, or it's I need to hire somebody to do it for me, right? It's a do it for me type of thing. And that's where the value add comes from. And this is the world that most of us live in, right? This is most of our business is taking on these types of clients, right? And it's important to recognize that that's not going away. That's gonna remain in
Nope.
a whatever your core tech, what your core competency here. Everybody in this room, our core competencies are WordPress and WooCommerce, right? But there's also people whose core competencies are in Webflow, right? And that's what those people get. And it's also important to remember that these people who, this idea of a small business who needs to get onto the internet is increasing dramatically. It's increasing dramatically. If you're a locksmith or a plumber or a restaurant and people are not finding you by their website, they're not seeing you on a website. They find you by Google Maps, right? And I'm specifically, I'm referring to most of the first world nations. I remember in India, WooCommerce is number one, right? Shopify ain't making inroads there. Hey, that ain't happening, right? And but if you're one of those people, you're getting discovered on Google Maps, and then people look at you and they click on your website, and they then immediately say, "This is a one-star website. This is not an established business. I'm moving on to number two." So those people, their expertise is plumbing. You know, their expertise is emailing their clients. Their expertise is not creating websites, and that's an important thing to recognize. That world is, you know, who do you hire brings the tech to you. If you
Well,
hire somebody
at
that
the
knows
end of the
Shopify,
day, it's all about the sales funnel and the website build. Yes, is part of that process, but having,
Necessarily.
having certain aspects of it streamlined, I see as a good thing. And the people who are in this room and others like it, I don't care how flashy, some skateboarding 13-year-old might be able to throw together. I mean, everybody knows a guy who can build a website, but can they build an effective website? Can they build a website that is going to actually showcase a particular business the way it needs to be shown, and then be able to pivot, to keep it, you know, I mean, just the idea of helping people identify niches that they can rock star in.
Yeah.
yeah, but we're
Half of
losing
my
niches, right? We've already lost the health and beauty niche, right? That's gone. That ain't coming ever back to WooCommerce. Never going to happen, right?
Yeah, but there's
The home,
entire industries that have thousands of little niches and local specialties. I mean, you're an SEO. all about, focusing in on certain unmined territory.
Oh, of course, of course. But
SEO, yeah.
there's I mean the crazy big numbers here are health and fitness and beauty and lifestyle and home and garden. Those are the mega markets, right? And
Yeah,
listen, those are big broad
but
strokes. And health
they're
and
not gone
beauty are
forever.
gone from WooCommerce. Home and garden still remains in WooCommerce, right? It's still solid there.
Yeah, I don't know that
Um,
it's gone forever, but I appreciate your point.
I know
Actually, this is a really good conversation.
yeah, all my
Thank you.
home service company websites are still in WordPress because they love their SEO pages that I can build out very easily with ACF, and I don't know, they're super happy and they make tons of money.
yeah, I mean, like I said, that home and garden market is solid in WooCommerce. It's solid in WordPress.
I
Yeah,
think what's going on here is what we're missing is and this is a great conversation, incidentally. So thank you for
yeah,
all the input.
this has been great.
But market segmentation is like what's going on. It's like if somebody's looking to replace their roof or their furnace, that's probably going to be somebody in their 40s or 50s, and they're probably going to use the WordPress or they're probably going to use the internet. But the, there's new companies coming up. They don't have websites. They have very prosperous businesses, and they don't need websites at all because they're using these other platforms. Someone mentioned India earlier, like hardly anybody has a website over there. They use Facebook or they use some of the other platforms. And so when you're looking at the evolution on the younger edge, how things are changing, probably isn't going to change for people in their 50s and 60s. So what is your market? So I'm starting to think, okay, market segmentation. If I'm looking at people who are in their 50s and 60s, WordPress is going to be fine. If I'm trying to hit like raves and I'm trying to hit people as skateboarders and they're in their 20s, maybe not, right? And WooCommerce needs to evolve. And I think they're trying to evolve
Yeah,
because
well,
I'm kind of in contact with those people a lot. And
They hired Brian Cords. I like him.
yeah, there's no choice. They have to evolve, right?
they
Let's
have
let's
to,
be
right?
real here, right? And
Yeah,
they
they
are,
need,
right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think they're trying to do that.
yeah,
So, and I think maybe DK and it might have been Brandon are saying that, hey, it's not a static situation with WordPress or even WooCommerce. They all could adapt. Will they?
well, and
They
it's
already
always a
I'm
are,
betting
question of it's
bad.
right?
always a question of how fast too,
Right, right,
because
yeah.
it's never fast enough, and it's open source, and that's part of the game.
And there's a lot of, but getting back to DK's point to a certain extent here, there's already a lot of, the way that a lot of people used to approach WordPress just a few years ago was either they come through the door through WordPress.com, or you decide you're gonna build out your own site. And if you're building out your own site, when you walk in the door, you had to make a lot of really, really heavy upfront choices. Now, if you're
Yeah,
walking in the door, you get these AI builders that are really show up early, and they let you prompt yourself, vibe code yourself into a reasonably looking website. It's actually, and there's also those wizards that build that websites. DK and I mean, I've been playing with Mosaic almost all day, sadly. And it's like, wow, look at this, man. This is wizard interface lets me do this. And then once you get into it, you get these Codys or these Angies, and there's more coming down the pike where you can just typey, and it
All getting
restructures it.
better and more faster and more efficient and more on point. It's
And the
Now,
moment the moment that something doesn't look right, that's the moment that you have to figure out what CSS is. That's the moment that you have to start saying, what is a rounded corner and how do I change a rounded corner?
mhm.
well,
And
luckily
how do you click on
they
it?
added border radius finally in core,
You
so
know,
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
Brendan,
I
a lot
still
of it is that
continue to. I'll use Gutenberg with I'll maybe add Spectra to it,
yeah,
but there's still so much you can do. I mean, I've heard it from mentors of mine. I could build you the ugliest website in the world, but if it makes you $10,000 a day, you're probably not going to be complaining about it. And that's I think what's important. The 13-year-old can probably get you a website looking cool, and it's going to have pictures of his friends and his skateboard and his whatever kids are collecting. What do kids collect nowadays? They collect anything?
Labubu's. I don't know.
Anyway,
Crypto.
Well, hold on a second. I
Yeah,
want to
there you
offer up
go.
this concept here. We're only a few years ago, we were talking about millennials and look at all the millennials and look at their trends, and they're the skateboarders and blah, blah, blah. But now, the millennials are in their 40s, okay? So, and it's the same kind of thing, Gen Z, oh my God, Gen Z, look at this, they're lazy, blah, blah, blah. They don't do this, they're doing their skateboarding, and now they're in their late 20s, right?
Yeah, now they're
And
on e-bikes and scooters and
and they have dollars to spend if they're part of an affluent group, right? If they have the affluence to have technology, they're in that group of the haves, not the have-nots. And now, again, Generation Alpha is 13 years old on the high end, right?
Yeah,
So, you
it's
know,
just one size fits all. It's like that's the problem, right?
we're
Everybody
about to
wants a
see.
one size fits all across all those demographics.
and how do they buy? Okay. So if
Yeah,
if they see a
there you
t-shirt
go.
that
Yeah.
they think is really cool, right? They see a t-shirt, they're reaching for the button inside of TikTok or inside of Instagram Reel or inside of YouTube Short. That's how they buy. That's their buying
Or Google
mechanism.
Lens.
And right. And then you also, I think a lot of people also miss the concept here, or Google Lens, totally. People miss the concept to a large extent that Amazon is one of the biggest search engines in the world. Okay. Let's not kid ourselves, right?
Sure.
There's times, everybody in this room, our internet habits changed a lot over the past few years, where we all kind of know that when we're looking for restaurants, we don't go to Google, we go to Google Maps, right? We go to Apple Maps to look for a restaurant. That's how we start our search. And if you're looking for products, you start your search on Amazon. So, and I think that those types of switches don't bode well for the website as a presence. And then, of course, other things come down, right? Also, remember that WordPress ecosystem is not shrinking, right? There's more developers coming to it. I am not saying by any stretch of the imagination that I'm bailing on WordPress. I'm just not creating new sites in WordPress. You guys,
Well,
if you've heard me say that for
there's
a while,
new topics.
I'm not doing new sites in
AI
WordPress.
and SEO are there. I mean, those any of those is a full-time job.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean
Um,
WordPress. I mean, as I look at these numbers, you guys see the sharing, right? WordPress is still dominant beyond dominant. I mean, these numbers are not that different than they were even after the hiccup of 2025 with Matt Mullenweg, showing a different side of himself. Let's say
43% is nothing to sneeze at.
nothing at all.
8.9,
But just look at
8.9%
it
of WooCommerce
graphically.
is nothing to sneeze at here, right?
The number two CMS is Shopify. But what does it have? It's got 10% of WordPress.
It's
The
a
number
fallacy to fall
two,
into that trap, right? It's like we're talking about the future, where it's going to be in 2 or 3 years ago. There are tons of companies they're out of business today because they didn't see the trend, right? They're dominant like Kmart or J.C. Penney's or Sears or there's so many of them, right? And what's happening is there's an evolution happening here. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us in this space, but I don't think we need to be monolithic to think any one particular solution applies across all the market segments. And this is what
consider the fact that WordPress is open source. We know Shopify isn't, Wix isn't, Squarespace isn't. Is Joomla open source?
Yeah.
It is.
I don't
Okay,
know
so
who the
Joomla,
heck is using
Drupal, I'm
Joomla.
sure is.
What is wrong with people using Joomla? What is up with
It's
that?
it's a couple people that are still stuck with it, probably.
Exactly. It's a legacy
Yeah,
thing. It's just like Drupal. It's a lot of legacy stuff.
yeah.
And, it's important also to recognize from a technology standpoint, WordPress CMS and the backend database of WordPress is second to none in the industry. All right. There is nothing better, period, that is established. Nothing. And it won't be, there's better tech out there, but it's not established. There's a lot of people who are creating brand new websites that are solid businesses and they're segmenting, they're making WordPress be completely hidden from the world. because they know they can build some really great stuff with WordPress and with the custom fields. It can be running as a back-end technology, and they can wrap whatever front end they want on it. They call it headless WordPress, right? Headless WordPress is growing and growing strong.
This is, I love what you're saying, David. You're right on topic, but it's like 30 years ago, you couldn't be in business if you didn't have a yellow page ad. And then 20 years ago, you had to have a website. And the fundamental question that I'm asking, in 10 years, will you need a website? Right? I mean, WordPress is dominant. I'm not arguing against it. And I think it's a great platform. And I think we all think it's a great platform. But
Well,
with
the
the
world
evolution of
thinks it's a
technology,
great
you may not
platform.
need
Look
a
at the
website.
numbers.
Well, that depends on whether where we are in the consideration of owning our own data or not.
Right, but you can share, you can work on multiple platforms, sell multiple products, and never own a website. And I think that's what's probably going to happen in the next 5, 6 years.
This is, this is part of the big problem I was kind of saying to a large extent, is that where people are going to get their info is different than where people are going to get their arts and culture, is different than where people are getting their restaurants, which is different where people are doing their shopping. It's segmenting so heavily. And it's interesting. DK is like so on the mark with this, and it's really important to recognize that you know SEO. I talk to people about advanced SEO a fair bit, and it's not websites necessarily. It's surfacing on Instagram and on YouTube, and how do you get yourself up there? And then it's been walled gardens that are increasing, right? You got to remember, Facebook is a walled garden, right? Instagram, walled gardens, right? These are become search engines, and TikTok is a walled garden. And do you own your data on those platforms? I mean, is that your data? Right. And now, of course, we have SEO is now AI, right? And we're only a matter of years away from, having these agents. I hate the word agents, but we're only a little ways away from this agentic types of systems where you can say, I believe I want to travel to South France in this time frame, and it just goes ahead and says these are the best rates. This hotel is available. Blah 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 blah. It puts together the whole itinerary for you based on everything it's known about you for a past certain amount of time, and then it suggests, do you want to book? And you click one button, and the bookings take place. And this agentic web is yet another type of system that may not have people touching our websites, right? We're on the cusp of that agentic internet where things go out and do things for you.
Well, what do you call the vehicle that holds your data that feeds the scrapers, the AI, whatever you want to talk it? You're going to feed the models with something. So where are you going to put your data? We're not going to call it a website anymore.
And where do
Yeah.
you trust your data?
And you should own your own, right?
Yeah, but so it's going to live somewhere, whether
Yeah.
it's a website or whatnot. It is the modern equivalent of a website.
So does it live on your local computer? Is it running, is that data being shared amongst a whole bunch of cloud servers? Is that data in the AIs,
It has to be.
right?
Or
It has to be.
does everyone just vibe code their own APIs?
Well, if as a business you're going to do whatever it takes to get your data surfaced out there.
For sure. Yeah.
So
course.
right now it's still creating a website. It's the only way to own your own data, right?
I follow what DK is saying.
Am I right,
And
David?
Yeah. No, yeah.
And I advocate.
And
that you
WordPress
want-
is still the best way, open source. Well, I don't know if it's the best,
if you're
but
going
it's,
to make data available to the
Yeah.
public, is
Right.
what DK is saying.
Yeah, you
But-
might be building it not for visitors anymore. You might be building it for the AI to come by and scrape. Who knows? But you're still
If
right
I
now,
can,
we still need it.
if I can hit the heart button multiple times over for what you just said, DK, that's a criticality right there. Okay. You have to get your data. This is the SEO world. You have to get your data absorbed by wherever your audience is going. And because if you're not able to be found, if you can't be discovered, because all of these different systems are not surfacing you to your audience, you're not going to grow as a business, or you're not going to get your donations, or you're not going to get your viewers, or you're not going to get your podcast subscribers, right? Because
Yeah, but
remember, not
also
everybody
when you do
wants the
get
sale,
those-
right? Not all the sale.
David, let me just parenthetically insert that when you do capture enough attention to get to at least a Google listing of your website or whatever we want to call it. We want to call it a widget meister in 2028, whatever. It's not. It doesn't matter what we call it, where it's located, how it's crafted. But at the end of the day, it has a job, which is to convey what that business is and to convey it in such a way that it is prevalent to the other options. There's always other options, and it starts with just a free version of Yoast and configuring your Google listing to be more compelling than the next guy. I mean, imagine if we could all start spending more time thinking about that stuff than the nuts and bolts of how we got to it. That and I'll throw out a wild card here. I was thinking about, there's all this talk about Trump wants to start these Trump accounts with the spirit of raising the fiscal sophistication of our youth. Give them $1,000 at birth, make these accounts available so that ideally, if they take advantage of it, they've got a couple million in the bank by the time their retirement age. But that's also going to be a more sophisticated, consumer. The kids aren't just going to be, oh, I think I'll go buy an energy drink and get new wheels for my scooter. Mike's a big crypto guy. I think we're going to see a sophistication in the youth market that somebody who's aware of these things might be able to take advantage of.
Oh yeah, I mean, brand buying has taken over. Gen A is all about brand buys, right? I mean, they have locked into Apple, right? You know what I mean?
And how many
So
bad brands have you seen? How many customers come to you who have horrific branding? Their logo sucks. They have no sense of identity beyond maybe a logo that somebody put together in Microsoft Word.
this is that core competency. These people's core competencies don't exist there. They need to seek the professionals. They need to seek the graphic designers. I was speaking to somebody at WordCamp this year about Figma going away, and I'm like, that ain't happening anytime soon, right? This is the tool of designers, and designers are still important. I mean, maybe they
Yeah,
still have a tough job market, but I mean, this is key. And branding, is key. One of my best friends is a professional namer. He names products and services for a living. That's all he does.
really.
And that's all branding, right? And you've
Absolutely.
probably run into, for the past 2 years, you've run into a lot of people that talk about your personal brand, right? And DK, this idea about getting your data out there, if you can't be found, if you can't be discovered, you're not going to reach your conclusion of what your goal is, right? And I mean, I'm saying, of course, assuming there's a goal of lead generation or getting the donation or the sale or the viewers or the podcast listeners, right? Whatever that goal is, right?
I didn't take that to be his point, though. I think what he's saying is that if you're going to control your data and make it available to the public, you want to control that. Then that's an argument that a lot of us have used of why you would have a website.
Well,
Too
my
huge
point my
thumbs
point
up.
was
Sorry,
not that
DK.
you care, you don't, the operative word isn't control your own data. It's not about liberating or controlling your data or owning your data. What it is, it's about, you got to get your data out there somehow. You got to make it available to the search engines that come by, whether you want to call them search engines or AI engines or whatever.
Whatever they are,
What
yeah.
what you got to put your data out there so it's scrapable, so it's queryable, parsable, whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it.
that's only organic SEO. and
No,
that's
that's
one.
No,
that's
no, no, no,
going.
no, 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 no,
Well,
no, 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 no. Before you have any organic SEO or anything, your data has got to sit somewhere. Where's it sitting? You
Well,
can't
right.
even begin to think about SEO until you have a platform for your data.
As
Now, the
your
people,
platform or someone else's platform.
Well, it's
right.
another plus for the built-in REST API in WordPress. I
So
mean, it's just
today,
sitting right there.
yeah. So today, our platform is a website. For those that think that, there's a lot of people that have successfully operated their businesses with TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, and they say, why do I need a website? Well, here's why you need a website.
It's
Because
secure.
right now, that's the vehicle where you can put your data. Let's not talk own your own data. Let's just say it's where you can put your data, because your data on Facebook and Instagram and all those vehicles are subject to political retribution. When the owner of those businesses comes under fire and people start rebuking those businesses, that's where your data is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And why put all your eggs in those baskets? Why not have a safe harbor for your data, and you're using their platforms to point to your data. So if something happens to one of those platforms, you're not out as much as you would be if you didn't have your website. If you
Yeah,
only
perfect example. One of my newest project is for another gun company. And you want to talk about an industry that has been literally under fire, just about. Well, just about.
No pun intended.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, we've come close. But I mean,
I don't think
if
they do
anything
any
hasn't
they don't do
been,
any payment processing, right? They don't allow that. Like
I'm
on
sorry.
Stripe, they don't allow payment processing for firearms, right? On Stripe or
Well,
Square.
there was an under Obama, Eric was it Elder? Eric
Older.
Holder, the AG,
Yeah.
crafted something on behalf of Obama, of course. There no roads ever
Well,
directly
he's
ended
part of the
at his
administration,
desk,
so
called Operation Choke Point, where they basically it was racketeering. They would approach financial and did real harm. And the tactics they were doing were amazing. The stuff that they were doing to prevent, because the anti-gunners are some of the smartest and craftiest people, and they are patient. So they would try everything from, you know, um, kind of, and we saw how, like with Mark Zuckerberg and what's his name from Twitter, before Elon,
Jack
the
Dorsey.
government was basically approaching them kind of around the back door and using racketeering tactics. Well, what good is it to have, a bank
you're making
if you
DK's
can't?
argument, really.
What's that?
You're making DK's argument. It's like if your content, if you want to protect it and you want it to
Yeah, no, no,
suppress,
no,
right? It's
absolutely.
like,
I'm fully on board
I
with
mean,
that.
whether you believe in the Second Amendment or don't, it isn't the point. DK is talking about if you're going to provide your information, you want to control it. You don't want to be, and when I say control, it's like I may have misspoke, but at the end of the day, is what you want to make sure that they can't suppress
You want to
your
retain
free
autonomy
speech. And if
of your
you own your
properties.
own website, they can't actually do that. Now, the
And a
government may,
13-year-old coder is not going to have the skills to vet hosting, to vet payment processors, um, and
but the 13-year-olds can slam up, name their favorite current topic, right? And their current topics are just all over the map for the most part, right? But if they're doing cosmetics or skincare or wellness or fitness or apparel or home essentials, if they're doing personal care, they're not doing the websites because to a large extent they feel their content is based good enough to be behind a walled garden. And that walled garden stuff, the fact that they're putting it up on, and YouTube is a bad example because that stuff is being sucked up by Gemini and by Google. But if they're putting it up on TikTok, their data is not being found by a large number of the other searchers. And that gets to the heart about, you need to get your data out onto websites, right? And that's because that's the stuff that's getting scraped by all the engines, right? The search engines are touching all these websites. That's how Google is absorbing its info. That's how Bing absorbs it. That's OpenAI. That's Anthropic. They have to get their data somewhere. And unless they buy it, and believe me, they buy it, right? You know what I mean? Like Reddit's for sale, right? Reddit is for sale. But is the Walther gun forum for sale? That's a garden, right? You know what I mean? Is Boggleheads, right? One of the big, index investing systems. Is that a walled garden? Is that stuff searchable on Google? And I think that's, do you put that data up on Boggleheads? Is that stuff available? Does that, I use the word surface, right? Does that surface for other people? By the way, on Boggleheads, the answer is yes. Okay. Boggleheads is indexed by Google. Is the Walther forums, is Sig Sauer indexed by their forums, right? So if I'm an advertiser and I want to sell people that I can do Walther PPQ firearms, am I going to put it up onto Shopify? No, I can't. Not allowed. Can I put it up on Wix? Nope, not allowed. Can I put it up on a website? Heck yeah. That's what I'm going to do.
That's the
Can I put it up
argument
on
for
TikTok? Heck yeah.
that's
There's a
the
huge
argument for
audience for Walther
WooCommerce, right?
PPQs on there, right? Do
That's
I
the
do I
argument
put
for
it up onto the
WordPress and
Yeah, that's
right,
where WordPress is going to continue to excel,
right.
right?
All those
You know?
niches that are abandoned, they'll
Yeah.
for free speech, whether you believe in it or not. It really isn't the point.
I mean, that's also until you realize that if you're in India and you're trying to sell this stuff, that Razor Pay won't let you do transactions and you can't get Stripe accounts there. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you're in that world of merchant services because a lot of them are limiting it, right? I mean, we're not talking about adult businesses, but adult businesses, what are they deploying on? Man, that's WordPress. It's
When
WordPress.
you say adult businesses, do you mean like porn, or do you mean like
Porn, cannabis.
for Second Amendment stuff,
Yeah.
or do
Well, that's what they did, especially going back as far as the Operation Choke Point. They grouped cannabis, porn, um, strip clubs, things
Strip
like
clubs,
that,
right?
into the
Burlesque shows
same.
got lumped into that. Yeah.
Well, for purposes of financial categorization, they put them all in the same category. That way, they can throw the same legislation at them and essentially,
Those
squelch.
businesses have, they have really, they have big issues in trying to make sure they can get payment processors, right? You know what I mean? They need a
Sure.
world of payment processors that will allow them to accept their products. And the narrowing of you're on Shopify and you can't do it that way, and you can't buy on, Instagram or Facebook or Shopify or TikTok. What do? You go to WordPress, right?
it
Well,
brings me back to
we have had, in this realm, and I think we're getting into the parking lot, but there are, as we've seen, a pendulum swing from hard left progressive to maybe a little bit more conservative. There are businesses coming online that are offering platforms, the Rumbles, what was the other one? Anyway, Rumble, things like that. And there's also payment processors. There's even banks that are starting to come on. I mean, I'm not saying it's a deluge,
in
but
the crypto world. It is.
well, the
It's
crypto world
amazing
is
the
operating
settlements and
at
stuff that's
breakneck
going on in
speed.
crypto right now.
Yeah,
So
but
The
before we
argument I
wrap
want
up
to make
here,
real quick,
I want
like,
to,
I'm
if I
sorry,
may, I
Dave, go
want to go
ahead,
back
please.
to my first statement here,
sure.
and where we started a while ago, which was that the point and click is not the future, right? And the reason for me saying point and click is not the future has a lot to do with the fact that if I am trying to create a brand new website and I approach the internet for the first time as a small business or a sole proprietor, and I see these bolt.new or lovable or replets, you can legitimately get a website up in 2 hours live.
You
legitimately
mean
Sure.
that point and click as a web builder
as a
or
web
a
builder.
consumer experience?
The combination.
Probably
Yeah.
both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
Which
what is your
one?
Well,
what is
So
your, I would
could I
say,
add
what
to
is your
that too?
criterion for that? What do you consider a website? We're talking about just an operating WordPress entity, or are we talking about you can get in 2 hours something that truly does represent their marketing? Present.
I'm saying a brochure site plus plus.
Okay.
Mhm.
so here's my take on that. The initial foray, yes, is going to be a prompt that you write, and let's say, just like now, the masses are going to be dumbed down. They're not going to know what good prompting is. And even if you do, you're still going to end up with the first iteration of your website. And at that point on, is it not more efficient to use your mouse to point at this box on the website and say, make this yellow? Instead of telling it, make the third box from the left, three down from the top, yellow. Instead, you're going to be using your mouse to point at it and click at it in a React grab type of scenario where it once you point at it, then it knows all the detail and attributes of that component of that's on the page, and then it can act accordingly, right?
Well,
Yeah.
and yet we're
Certainly more
still
efficient
talking about just
with the
nuts and
So
tokens.
bolts. You
so
just,
therefore the no, we are talking nuts and bolts, and
we are.
therefore that's how you continue the development. You're still going to be using a mouse. It's going to be more efficient than not using a mouse with
Yeah.
AI.
That's
So
how
are we
Pinegrow
touch
is.
consumer
screens.
experiences versus
There's
web
there's
building?
we've had
Sorry.
touch screens since what? Windows.
Well, touch screen
Uh,
mouse, same thing. You're going to touch it. You're going to
He's
point.
saying he's giving it specific context rather than
right.
just
But what
Yeah,
I'm
marking
it's
it
saying
in
is, okay,
general.
you've now achieved turning a transparent block into a yellow block. What I'm talking about is coming up with, primary goal for the site, a secondary goal for the
no,
site,
we're not
coming
there
up with
yet.
a
We're not
primary
there yet. We're not
calls
there
to
yet.
action. These are the
Right.
things that a streamlined nuts and bolts process can allow us to turn our attention to.
Yeah, but I mean,
Because it is,
those things also could be baked into the prompt from the get-go. I mean,
Exactly.
that's yeah. I mean, those ideally those are things you define before you even start designing a website anyway,
So
right?
that's the direction I go, David. Every time you allude to the fact that point and click is going away, I think it's going to go away for people that forget the fact that it's still more efficient to point and click than it is to verbally tell the AI which portion of the page you're talking about.
yeah, but
Don't you think?
remember also that if you come up with a template prompt to get you to that basic level, that's why I was asking before, what's the baseline? If you can get a text file that just has your basic prompt, you can feed that in, the site's up,
Yeah, but
now you can make it whatever you want it to
The
be.
average Joe isn't going to be at the level to know that they're giving a shitty prompt.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Or
we're
they're
all
They're
using
not getting SEO. They're not getting accessibility. They're not getting
exactly
commerce. They're not getting any of that stuff, right?
none of
right.
that.
But when do they realize that? They realize that when they turn to all of us here in the room, right? They realize that usually like months after the fact that they can't iterate, right? And then they turn to the pros, and the pros are going to continue to do the point and click,
Right.
right?
Because
Or the
experience.
pros they turn to are very skilled programmers who do know how to prompt, who do know how to solve stuff, regardless of the platform that they're using, right?
Yeah.
I can't point and click my way into Astro. I just can't do it. Not going to happen. Never will. Can't point and click your way into Next.js. Can't do
Well,
it.
I'll make the same point I made last time. When the DX7 keyboard came out in 1981 or whenever that was, it lowered the bar technologically for what the average schmo could create sonically, but it's still, Stevie Wonder, Chick Corea, Rick Wakeman, all these guys who were amazing creative musicians were still able to create they were actually able to create things that are worthwhile. The DX7 just allowed them to sample and to do some streamlining of some of the processes. I think we're seeing that right now. So anybody who's a little afraid that we're going to be hustled out, make sure that you start focusing on your own marketing, emphasizing experience and the difference between a knowledgeable, experienced web developer and someone who just fills that gap of, I know a guy. You know, there's been guys building websites since Microsoft Word. When did Microsoft Word add HTML pages?
That was a dark day.
You ever seen an entire website built with Microsoft Word? It is not a
Yeah,
pretty sight.
yeah. Hmm.
You know, I mean, you know, ubiquitous and available is not the same as knowing what the hell you're doing.
All
So
right, there's three options out here. You do it yourself, you do it with somebody, or you hire somebody to do it, right? And all of us remain in the hire somebody to do it, and we're not going away, right?
yeah,
We're bringing our tools to the table, and we're not going away.
yeah. Two things I always tell people: listen, success on the internet is a product of two things: time or money. If you have a lot of time on your hands, well, you might be able to achieve some things. If you have money on your hands, you can pay somebody else who knows how to do it, to do it well. So the resulting conclusion I will make is that we are bitching. We ain't going away. What we know will continue to be useful. And
Yeah.
I'd say that that's probably a pretty good place to end the recorded portion, which means then we go into the after show, the parking lot where it really gets interesting. Last
So
time I
I do
didn't
have a
close the
comment
room
here.
until 10:30.
So
That
I
was,
do
you
have a
know,
quick
I mean,
comment
this
here
meeting went
on.
for 4.5 hours after I closed it. So I'm going to go ahead and call for any last minute things that you guys might want to bring up or discuss
Yeah,
on the record.
I think developers they're all going to go away in like the next 2 3 years. But that doesn't mean the people in this group don't provide value. I think the market is going to change dramatically. But you still have value. If you don't adapt to those markets, it's like you're not going to need developers here in two
Well, I
years.
mean, if we go communist or socialist, where
No, no, it's not
your
that at
buying
all. It's
choices
actually
are
free
made
markets
for
that's
you.
making this all move forward. It's not a socialist agenda. It's
No,
like
but
the
as
free
long as the
markets.
consumer has choices, people who are able to influence choices via the mediums that we control, primarily
It
visual,
is
but
the
certainly
tools that are available to all of us are available. It's going to make. I think it's going to make lawyers irrelevant. You're not going to need lawyers anymore. You're going to.
nah.
Now that's probably more like 5 6 years away. But for WordPress developers, you're not going to need developers, but your knowledge, what you have, you're going to benefit people. You're going to bring people in there. You're going to create their websites, but no, you're not going to need developers. You're going to use AI, and you're going to do agentic AI. You use processes. It's not a bad thing. I mean, a lot of us say, "Oh, we're trying to protect our markets, and we don't want people to be able to do it and compete against us." And in the end, it's like you're going to be able to compete far more effectively. You're going to be able to do it in quicker. You're going to get better service because you're using tools that are available that most people are. They're not going to embrace them because they're afraid of AI, right? But if you're going to deny it, you're going to think, "Oh, we're not going to use a calculator because we won't know how to add. We're not going to use a computer because we can't use." Nobody's doing high-end physics, high-end scientific research that's not using supercomputers. It's the same thing today. That's what's happening with all these tools that are coming online. We are in
Well,
the unique we're in a unique position to understand it and bring it to our clients and give them
mhm.
better value, right?
And I would agree with you as far as developers going away, that there will be many developers who will, get stuck in the mud and not move forward, which I think is an advantage for the rest of us who are a little bit more
You
proactive
embrace
or
the
reactive.
technology, right? You embrace the tools that give better value, And right, you're gonna. Here's what I love about AI, and this is the problem I've had with almost all my web clients, and I've had like maybe 20 of them over the last a decade. They can't give me content. They don't give me pictures. They don't, and I can use AI and I can generate content right away. And they have a functional website in like in 30 minutes, in 20 minutes, where
Yeah.
I couldn't do that years ago. I had to make stuff up. I've run political campaigns where everything on that campaign is stuff that I created. It should be the candidate, right? It should be them. I'm kind of almost ashamed to do that, right? But they hired me, they paid me, so I do it. All that stuff
I've
goes.
seen a lot of political websites. I don't tend to be particularly impressed with the
Oh, they
marketing
suck. Most
quality
of
of
them
them.
suck.
They
They're
suck.
horrible, man.
Well, they're no
But
different than
will
any.
they all suck in a year and a half, in 2 years?
Well, as long as politicians suck, I think we have a pretty good chance that their websites
We can
will.
agree with that, but
Yeah, that won't
Let's
change.
let's go ahead and step into the parking lot and
thank
we
you,
can expound
Brandon.
on
I
that.
mean,
So I want to thank all of you guys. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being here. We're at
this is a very
7:51
enlightening.
and it's a lot of that's
This
a
is a
lot of
very
work.
enlightening conversation.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, absolutely. And again, I
Davis
invite you to stay. I invite you to
and
hang out for the after show,
and
where the
DK, they
conversation
made
gets
me think
really
about a lot of
interesting.
stuff here that I
I'm
didn't kind
holding back too.
Oh,
Yeah,
same,
of.
same.
we're
I got a
gonna
lot.
we're gonna hope
I mean,
DK.
if I was gonna divulge, I'll just make a pregnant question, put a pregnant elephant in the room for next time. You might not have to worry about any of this. You might not,
Exactly.
you and everybody you know might not have a job. You might not exist. There's a lot of shit that needs to be worked out. You
Well,
might not exist.
successful people are the ones who've
So,
probably failed more than anyone else.
yeah,
And
well, there needs to be some guardrails put up. There's already, there's already, I've already, we each of us have already thought about this kind of stuff. We're talking about Skynet type of shit, right? We're talking about the battle of the bots versus the humans, and the shit that's going on that I'm hearing and watching certain pundits talk is quite disturbing.
well,
People,
stop listening to pundits talk, man.
I don't buy that. I don't mean, yeah, no, right. I don't mean headline grabbers. I mean people that are
Sure.
obviously not there to grab the headlines. They're there trying to get us to call our congressmen and stuff like that and get something done.
Right.
Aside
And
Well,
from
that's
all
the way
this,
to
let
end
me
the.
close
That,
it up, and I'm going to hope that all of you guys will stick for the parking lot because then DK can let
that's all
fly.
good. But I do
Um,
want to make the point that I thought this was a very thoughtful conversation, and the
absolutely
contributions
was.
from David
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Brandon, and it made me think about the evolution of where we're going. Like none of us know for sure, but
And what I will
it was
point
a good
out,
conversation. It was a
what I
really
will
good.
point out to our
So
replay visitors that we had the very same. It's very common for this to happen. There's only so much. Nowadays we are in a highly charged, polarized environment. Situational awareness requires that we be cognizant of that. For that reason, and for also you can't just have podcasts that go on forever or webcasts that go on forever. So I'm going to turn off the recording. I'm going to thank you guys for being here, but I will also recommend to the replay visitors that you have no idea what you're missing by not being part of the after show, because that's when the gloves come off. That's when we don't have to be quite as politically correct, because let's face it, everything is polarized. There is an opposite view on everything, and I mean everything. And for purposes of not alienating viewers, I try to keep that stuff in the parking lot. But that's why the parking lot is so interesting. It's a combination of Studio 54 and a UFC fight. So I will tempt you with that. I will thank our friends for being here. Uh, Brendan, Mike, David, DK, you guys rock. And don't leave, because I'm just going to turn off the recording. And let me not promise something that I can't deliver.